Hello everyone, Ben here with a solo game of Founders of Gloomhaven. The setup for the solo game is very similar to a normal game. You get to pick your faction on the A side, and depending on which faction you pick may make the game harder for yourself. Some factions have faction abilities which only basically interact with other factions, and obviously in a solo game they're not going to be much use. So depending on how difficult you want to make the game for yourself, you may or may not pick those factions. The faction starting resource, which in the case of the Harrowers is food, then gets placed out on one of the numbered spaces on the board as such, and it can be in one of the sections left, middle or right. In the case of the thematic side of the board, which this one is, if you want to flip it over, you've got the kind of the symmetrical generic side of the board, which you can also play on. But I kind of like the thematic side, so we're going to try that and see how it goes. And this is basically what is going to be Gloomhaven, but you are obviously in the process of founding it, so it's a fresh landscape, and we're going to cluster it up with buildings in short order. Once you've determined all that, the rest of the setup is basically the same with your people you can recruit and the prestige buildings we can place out. And we have some influence gems on the prestige buildings, and we'll see how those tie into the game when we get up to having a vote. And we get started. We don't have a secondary resource, as it were, because in a solo game we basically own all the resources, so we just have a big stack of them here, and we get to place them out as and when we feel like it. So the flow of the game is very similar to a normal game. You have your hand of cards, and we're just going to put the call to vote card off to one side for the time being. We're not actually going to use that as such, but it does technically come into play throughout the game. And then depending on the card you play, you get to do some of the basic actions. So upgrade is getting upgraded resources. Recruiting is getting more advisors from the board there. Trading is placing out these basic resource tokens, and constructing is one of the special buildings, either a bridge or a house, which will give us special access. And if you don't particularly want to do the main action on a card, you can always flip it over and then just do the generic action, which is money, fleeting influence, roads, or placing a person out onto a worker placement spot and doing the specific action of that spot. That is only going to come into effect once we've built houses and freed up some of our workers, so not yet for those ones, but at some point during the game, I'm sure. For the sake of simplicity, I won't be flipping around cards, because it just makes it slightly harder to unflip them when it comes for getting all the cards back in, so I will be hopefully keeping things straight with figuring out what actions I'm doing depending on the card. We're not going to do an upgrade yet, so I think what we're going to do is we'll flip this over technically and say we're doing a basic action for that, and then we'll build out our first road, and let's go for probably over here. Gives us decent access to cheaper spots for building, and allows us hopefully to get down to this area here, which is the kind of the grassy area, which is useful for building houses. So we'll do that. And if this is a normal game, then other players will be allowed to do the follow action, which is basically a slightly weaker version of whatever the main action is that you've played. As it is, we get to just basically carry on with our next action, which I think is going to be a trade. And we will play this for the actual trade ability, and we will pay 1 coin now that we have range of this slightly brown area. So the slightly brown area is 1 coin to build into, the sandy beach area is 2 coins, and the earth/grass area is 3 coins. So obviously we want to build into the cheapest areas possible. So we're going to build here, and it's going to be 1 coin, so that can go back to supply, and we get to place out one of the starting resources that we like. In a normal game, if you have your secondary resource, you could place that out now. But if this was a resource that was either neutral or somebody else controlled, you'd have to buy into it. You'd have to buy access to it, and that would be significantly more expensive in terms of coins. But as we control all of them, we can just place them for the cheapest possible. So then, we have food, which is a good start. Well, it's a start anyway. Looking at the prestige buildings, we can see that if we go for the soldier's garrison, that's going to require metal ore, which might not be a bad one to start with. The salt barrel is going to be wood. Golems and gizmos is also food, so that's fine. We've got that. We've got that in play already. So maybe ore, maybe wood. Unfortunately, it doesn't look as if any of the recruits we can recruit tie into that as well. So in order to recruit one of these advisors, not only do you have to pay the cost above them, which ranges from 1 to 2 coins, but you also have to have access to that particular resource in the bottom left. So this is livestock, which we don't have and we aren't probably likely to get. This is hides, again, not likely to. Food, which we may well do at some point, but not right now. And gems. Well, possibly if we go for golems and gizmos, we might want to go into gems, but that's a ways off in the future. So I think then our starting resource is probably either likely to be metal or wood, one of those two, which then helps us supply either of these buildings. Probably metal. I think we'll try and plonk out the soldier's garrison in the beginning and go for that. Although saying that, how easy is it going to be to get to the rest of the stuff? That's going to be personnel plus food. Huh. Okay, well, we'll see. So we'll go for metal then, and we'll place that probably here, I think. And then we place a marker on it to show that it's our resource. Strictly not necessary in the solo game because all resources are your resources. And then we get to place a cube out onto the relevant spot on the board to show that we now have control of that access resource. And it's just a handy indicator to show which resources we have out, and therefore which resources we can start chaining into in the second and third tiers. And we get to increase our income because that's also a unique resource that adds into that. And we're done. So then on to recruiting. Well, unfortunately we can't recruit because we don't have the necessary stuff. So we could either get a coin, influence, more roads might not be a bad idea. I think more roads possibly. So we'll get another road and we'll probably start trying to go this way. Okay, and then construct. Again, that's going to be a basic action. I don't think we're going to try spending our money yet to get. Although, if we build our road down here, or even up here, no, I think down here is probably a better idea. Then we could do a construct action, and we could build a personal building at -1 cost, which would be probably a house, which would give us access to the worker. That might not be a bad idea, to be honest. So we could build a house, we'll get a worker out, and then we can start doing worker placement actions, which would be, at the start anyway, losing a point to gain 5 coins. So yeah, I think that's probably a slightly better option than just cranking out more roads, to be honest. So we'll do that. So construct will be a proper action. We'll build a house, and it has to be on the grassy area. And it would normally cost 4, but we get to do it for 1 discount. Whoops. Okay, I'll just pretend I hadn't dropped that on the floor, and there's the coin back into supply. And there is our worker ready to go. So on a future turn, when we have a basic action, we can now plonk him out and start doing this particular action in the beginning anyway. So we'll do that. And we've exhausted our hand of cards now, so we have to do a call to vote. You can technically do a call to vote earlier, but there's honestly no reason to, because you can just do the basic actions anyway with your cards rather than leftover cards, and there's no reason to do a call to vote earlier than that either. And we get all our cards back in, so they can just go back into our, what would technically be our hand. We get our workers back in. If they had been out on worker placement spots, they would all come back to the main area. We get our income. So this is a slight deviation from the normal game, in which other players would gain income if you yourself had called a vote. But in the solo game, you get to get your income, which is 2 coins in this case. And because we built our first house, it is a fleeting influence, which unfortunately is going to get a bit wasted, but never mind. And then we get to do the prestige building part. So if there are any prestige buildings out already on the board, we'd have to start messing around, placing out neutral markers, which determines whether or not we supplied goods to them. But for the time being, for the first one anyway, we can pick a prestige building and place it out onto the world. Now this is where the gems come into it, because the first one is free, which is fine, that's the one we were going to go for, but other ones, middle and right hand side, if you want to place those ones out, if you want to skip ahead in the queue, you have to pay that much in the influence gems. So 2 fleeting or 1 lasting influence, and then 2 lasting influence for the right hand side. Now we can't afford either of those, but that's fine, we were not going to bother with them in the first place, so we'll just build the soldiers garrison. And this is going to get a bit tight with placement, isn't it? We'll plonk it up here for the time being, and if we happen to build into that area, that's fine, we'll start shifting cards around. But this basically flips over, and then this is another worker placement spot. You can put your workers onto and get whatever the depicted benefit is, if you have supplied resources to that particular building. So we have to find the soldiers garrison, which is going to be, where is it at? Over here somewhere, there we go. Soldiers garrison. You have to place it in the particular landscape type shown, so in this case it's the grass area, and it doesn't have to connect to anywhere that you previously own, unlike other stuff. I probably should have mentioned that beforehand. Normally stuff that you build, for example houses and advanced resource buildings, have to connect up to your existing network of stuff, but prestige buildings and the starting resource buildings are the exception to the rule, in that you can place them anywhere you like, and it doesn't matter. So we could, if we were suicidal, basically shove that all the way over there and then not worry about it, except when we lose the game. But for the time being, we can probably place it down here somewhere, and then we can build a road that connects up to it in the future. And as long as one corner of it is touching the necessary landscape type, that is fine. So we could kind of place it here if we wanted to, with the rest of it on the sandy beach, but one corner is still on the grass, that's fine. But I think, especially that we're kind of over in this area, if we place it here maybe, I'm going to build a road possibly over there actually, which would connect up to it, so that should be fine. We could place it here, but I think that's blocking off some of our cheaper building spots we might want to use later on. So there. I'm not 100% sure either way, to be honest. In fact, we might even want to place it up here. If we build somewhere like there, then we could do that and build over there for another one. Yeah, that's probably a more reasonable place. So we'll place it there. And then we're not connected to it just yet, but we will do at some point in the future, so that's fine. And that can go there. Once we've placed out a building, but before we supply resources to it, so even if we had connected it to our road network, and we were going to supply this ore to it, the first thing we do is we can place a claim marker on it or a neutral claim marker, to show that we now have to supply resources to this building. And if we don't, then we have to pay a forfeit, and if we can't pay the forfeit, then unfortunately we lose the game. So hopefully we will not see how that happens later on, but you never know. But that's there for the time being anyway. So building placed, and then all the other buildings shuffle down in the queue, and we get a new one out from the bottom of the stack. And it is the university. Okay, fine. There is a slight restriction with prestige buildings in that you cannot have two of the same colour and layout, as it were, in the queue. If there are, you have to basically put the rightmost one to the top of the stack and then redraw. And similarly, or with building placement, you cannot have two of the same colour and type out into an area of the board. So left, middle and right all have to have unique types, including resource buildings. So in a multiplayer game especially, if there are multiple of a particular building out, they have to be in separate areas of the board. You can't have them all bunched up into one. But for a solo game, that's unlikely to happen. I think we've got more important things to be doing rather than trying to build multiples of a particular resource type. So, fine. And we're basically done now with the call to vote, so we can go on to the next stage of the game. So we've got all the cards back in, and we basically can start playing them again and see how we go. And we'll continue this for, 6 more times now. So basically you're going to have 7 prestige buildings out in total, and you have to have supplied all the resources to the 7 prestige buildings and not lose the game halfway through. And if you manage to do that, then you win, and you tally up your points and see how you did. So hopefully we'll get there towards the end. We shall see. So I think, now then, were we going to try, we're not going to do a construct, so you can probably use that for generic action, and I don't think we're going to be able to do recruit. So we might do, or are we going to do a recruit? Will we even have enough coins? Trading is going to be one we're going to use, and quite possibly upgrading. And that's likely to be 5 coins in total. So constructing will most likely be a generic action, so we'll do that then. So constructing, and we're going to use it for its basic action, and that will just be a road. So we can place it here, and at some point we'll place one in here to connect this road network up. The rules for kind of road networks are a bit finicky, but once you play through it, you'll quite easily get the hang of it within hopefully a few turns. Basically, when you're trying to determine supplies to particular buildings, you can't go through other buildings, but you can go through obviously road networks, and you can go through them in all 8 directions. So this particular, and they do have kind of a handy indicator, as in they have all 8 roads off in the various directions. So even on a diagonal, you can still get supplies going through. But obviously, in the case of this road network, these buildings are blocking if any supplies were coming in from the bottom of the map, for example. So we're going to have to build a road here at some point to complete the chain and get stuff moving through. But for the time being, this is perfectly fine, because all that needs to happen is this ore just needs to connect up to the soldier's garrison and supply there, which is fine. So we can certainly do that. Okay, so that marker now comes off because we've supplied it, and the marker will quite definitely go back on again during the next call to vote, and we get 3 points, like so. Some of the victory points have bits in parentheses, and we'll see how that works when we get to it, but it's honestly not as complicated as it's made out to be, I assure you. So that is supplied, that's 3 points. We could, now then, we could do a trade. So now this road is up here, we can build into this cheaper spot here. And another restriction on building is you cannot place your buildings directly next to your own buildings. So you can't have, for example, a chain of resource buildings in a straight line. As nice as that would be, and as efficient as that would be, unfortunately the rules do not allow it. So we're going to have to do some kind of spacing option like that, just to get stuff out in as tight a formation as possible. And unfortunately, again, because you can connect stuff on a diagonal, we can't have a chessboard-like pattern like that, for example, because then these two would be connected on a diagonal and they would be considered adjacent. So that is also not allowed, which means that for our third trade building, what do we want next then? Let's see. So the salt barrel, when it comes out, is going to want wood. Okay, fair enough. Golems and gizmos is going to want food. We've already got that in supply. It's also going to want diamonds, but that's again another simple trade commodity. That's fine. The university is going to want diamonds and, or gems I should say probably, and population / people. Okay. As part of the advisors, which is useful to have to start recruiting early and often, because obviously the more cards you have in your hand, the more stuff you can therefore do, and the longer you can extend your turns. But I think unfortunately the only one that really ties into stuff is going to be the blackmailer, which is getting food. Does that even tie into anything? Not really. None of these buildings we've got out at the moment want food. Soldier's Garrison doesn't want food at all, so it would just be basically upgrading the food into cooked food for no real purpose apart from getting this card. Livestock and hides are the next two for the Shepherd and the Usurper. Or the Showman, who also wants gems. That could be a useful one. But to grab him would be 2 gems. So we'd have to get a coin from somewhere, probably. Or we could just go for the livestock or the hides, and the Shepherd and the Usurper are both 1 coin, so the cheapest amount possible for recruiting purposes. The livestock does tie into hides, so that's okay. We could probably do that. And it does tie into cloth as well, and we are going to need cloth for the salt barrel at some point. So that's a useful chain. So maybe then hides might be a useful one to go for. Okay. If we're going for the salt barrel, at some point it needs, I think that's manpower, as does the Soldier's Garrison. That's what the processed food was going to be for. That was going to tie into the manpower option as well. Huh. That could be a ways off though, quite possibly. Well, let's try the livestock trade building. If nothing else, it's a bit more income, so we could do that. So we'll put that down. We'll spend the 1 coin to do that, and we get to claim it as our own, and we get a marker on the board just to solidify that fact, and that's out there. So we're doing well. We've got 3 out of the 8. It's not too bad, and that's another income. So then we have recruiting, and we can now definitely recruit somebody. We can recruit Shepherd. That is, however, going to use up 1 of our coins, which means we only have 3 left, and 3 is not enough for an upgrade if you want to do an upgrade building. The costs for those range from 4 to 6, depending on whether it's a level 2 or a level 3 building we want. But that's not the end of the world. We could probably forego upgrading for the time being and just focus on the recruit and saving some money. Yeah, actually that's probably not a bad idea, because with the upgrade we could use our worker placement and get even more money. So sure, we'll do a recruit. So we recruit an advisor and we gain 1 fleeting influence. This fleeting influence should have gone away at the end of the call to vote. Any fleeting influence you don't use, obviously, as the name implies, is fleeting and not lasting. So that should have gone away, but we'll get it back as it is, so that is now technically correct. And we can recruit this shepherd, and now we've placed out the relevant building, so he will quite happily come over to our side and advise us in exchange for these resources. And he goes directly into our hand, so in essence we're using one card to gain a card, but on future turns this is now an extra card with which we can do actions. He costs us a coin, so that goes away, and you then get the bonus in the right hand side, which is going to be at least one lasting influence, but possibly points as well, depending on what the advisor is. And then these all shift down and a new one comes out. A carpenter who wants wood. Okay, fair enough. Then the shepherd is available to us, so we could use him, and we could use him for his proper ability if we had the right bits and pieces. But once you, in the solo game, once you've used one of these guys for the actual ability as shown on the card, they then get discarded and are of no further use to you for the rest of the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to technically flip him over, and we're going to use his basic action, and that will probably be a worker placement spot, and we will lose 1 point to gain 5 coins. We have supplied to the soldier's garrison, so we could use the soldier's garrison ability, but there's no point doing this in a solo game because we are going to have access to all resource tiles connected to that tile because they're all ours in the first place. So this ability is unfortunately of no use, but some of the prestige abilities are quite game-changing and can be very powerful, but not yet, unfortunately. So we'll just do that one. We lost 1 point, but we gain 5 coins, which is pretty good. And we could do an upgrade, although it might be worth getting a fleeting influence instead. So we could do an upgrade, and we could make a start on the upgrade trail and getting these upgrade buildings cranking out. But if we get one more fleeting influence, then we could spend 2 and we could put out golems and gizmos rather than the salt barrel. I think that's possibly a slightly better option, or is it? What do we need for that? Because I think that's going to be the sticking point. So we need manpower and food. It might be worth going into food then, just to get a leg up on that. These tier 3 resources are quite difficult to get, and they require several steps of chaining resources together, unfortunately. So if you need to supply them to buildings and they catch you unawares, you can start hemorrhaging influence points as penalties for not being able to supply them to buildings. So seeing that that's in our future and we know that that's coming up, I mean, we might want to try and get a leg up on it and spend the upgrade card then as an upgrade card and put out the food building somewhere, or the processed food even. We do have the prerequisite, which is just the food. Again, some of the tier 2s have several prerequisites, but this is a nice easy one for the time being, so it might be worth doing it. Okay, so we'll do that then. We'll spend the 4 as part of an upgrade. We get a road as well, and you can place the road out before or after you place out your advanced building. And the road could go... this is interesting. It could do that, and then we could try placing our upgrade building like that, for example. So again, unfortunately, it can't touch anything that we already own. So it can't touch the house, and it can't touch the tier 1 resource buildings. We could place it down here, but again, I like to try and save this space for cheaper tier 1 buildings. We could place it up here, for example, somewhere, but I foresee problems of trying to get it connected to our network that way. So really the only alternative is that's going to be touching the house no matter what happens down there. So yeah, I think here, and then we'll do that, and then at some point we'll kind of branch out over here and build a bridge across the river here, and then start expanding into this area. I suspect that should be okay. But yeah, space also is can also get rather tight if you build yourself into a bit of a corner. We shall have to hopefully try and mitigate that as best we can. But I think that should be fine for the time being. So we'll do that. We spent our 4. We gain access to the building, and we gain access. We gain a marker there to show that we have that resource as well. And we get another income, so that's pretty good. Okay, and we're all done. So second call to vote now. And this building has been supplied, so we don't have to pay a penalty. So it just gets another, well, not quite yet, just yet. We have to place out a second building. We get income first of all, which is going to be 4 coins, and a fleeting influence. And I should have realised I was going to get a fleeting influence as part of income, so that would have been handy to keep in the back of my mind as well, but I forgot completely, so never mind, that's a bit of a bonus. We get our person back, so they're available for next turn. Now we get to place out a building, and I did say with the 2 influence we could possibly place out golems and gizmos, but actually yes, golems and gizmos might still be the preferred option, simply because if we're working towards this tier 3 resource, which would help the salt barrel also requires another tier 3 resource, which is the cloth here. And that one I suspect is going to be slightly harder to gain access to, simply because it requires machinery, which is knowledge plus smithing. I forget the technical terms for all of these, but you can pretty well imagine what they are based on the icons. And this is going to be quite a number of options we're going to have to grab. So the cloth is going to be a ways off, so I don't think the salt barrel is in our immediate future, but it's definitely we want to place that at some point, because we have almost all the resources for it anyway. But skipping ahead, I think golems and gizmos is probably a better one. We have the food anyway, so that negates at least 1 turn's worth of resources, and the gems will be significantly easy to get out as well. And the machinery is one we need on the way to cloth. So all in all, yeah, that's probably the better option. So then, to grab the middle one, we have to pay, in this case, 2 fleeting influence. And it can be 2 fleeting influence, or it could be 1 lasting. 1 lasting is the same as 2 fleeting and vice versa. Only the fleeting influence does go away if we don't spend it, so we may as well spend it and save our red gem there. So golems and gizmos is now going to be out on the board, and it is this tile here. And again, these prestige buildings can be connected to anything. It doesn't matter if it's our stuff or somebody else's stuff, or what have you. So we could actually, for example, flip it over even, and then stick it nice and snugly kind of in this gap here, where we're not likely to build anything else for the time being. It's connected up to a road network, so that's an immediate bonus, and it's occupying space, as I said, that our buildings wouldn't be able to go into. So yeah, that's not too bad. And then we place out discs. So Soldier's Garrison needs another resource towards it, and the Golems and Gizmos needs another resource towards it, but we do have the immediate food generation like that from this food up here, so that will take care of that for 1 turn, and that's fine, and we get a point. So good. Buildings moving on. New building out from the bottom of the stack, which is going to be the Greymere Estate. These are the same colour, but they're not the same layout, as it were, so that's fine. In fact, what might be useful is if I can find the relevant buildings, I could just place them on top of those, and that will make it even easier to determine exactly where things might want to go. So that's that. University is going to be up here somewhere, which is going to be this one. And then the Greymare Estate, which is going to be this one. So now we can see exactly what the building is going to look like, and how we might be able to place it in our existing networks, like so. And you can tell what the benefits for them are going to be, but I think that the benefits for the cards, as in the worker placement spots to give, is possibly a secondary concern, depending on, or secondary concern, which is not quite as important as the resources that you can supply to them and how easily they're going to be to fit into your existing network. So there we go. Golems and Gizmos gives us the ability to pay 1 coin to perform the action of any other prestige building connected to this tile. Again, not quite as useful as some of the other ones, unfortunately. Yes, maybe in a normal game where you don't quite have all the resources or any resources supplied to a particular prestige building, and therefore you can't access it. But for the solo game, you really need at least, ideally, 1 resource to every prestige building every turn. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind. So gaining access to them for the purposes of using their abilities is not really much of a concern, unfortunately. But never mind. Maybe we'll get one in the future we can actually make use of. So that was our building placed out and supplied, and now we go back into another round. So then, we've got the Shepherd, and I think that's the only recruit we have. So we might just use this guy for a basic action just to start things off, and then we don't have to worry about him for the rest of the turn. So we might just use him to place out a road, maybe. Let's see, what are we going to need to do? So we're going to do a trade, and we might just get gems out, and then, well, we don't even have to do that, to be honest. We could wait for gems until next round for Golems and Gizmos. What we do have to do, though, is get population. So the trade for population, the upgrade for, I don't know, population with hammers, communism, whatever it is, which would be 1 coin and then 6 coins. That's a total of 7 coins. We've got enough coins for that, which leaves us with recruiting for a coin, which is going to be hide, which is not necessarily an option, or food, which is definitely an option, processed food, so that kind of works out well. That's not too bad. Okay. The only thing we might want to work out is how we're going to place all these buildings. So if we use the Shepherd to plonk down a road somewhere, which might be over here. Unfortunately, things are... we could almost use 2 roads, actually. One there, which would allow access to these spaces for cheaper resource building. And then 1 there, and 1 there, which would allow access to these 2. That kind of doubles up, unfortunately, on certain spots. It's a start, though. It's not the worst thing in the world. Or we might just have to bite the bullet and place them in slightly more expensive spaces rather than just plonk out a bunch of roads. Well, Shepherd building, and we're going to build a road. We might do that. 1 there, 1 there, a couple over there. That spreads them out kind of nicely. Okay, so we might do that then. So, Shepherd for the road, done. Then we can use the trade, and we'll spend a coin, and we'll place out manpower over here, like so, and that's that. That doesn't feed into anything, so that's fine for the time being. Then we could do upgrade, and we could place out, what did I say it was going to be? Our tier 3 labourer building for 6 coins, like so. We've got all the stuff, and we can double check if we've been keeping the board up to date, because we can see that we've got the people and the processed food, which ties directly into that, so that's fine. Now then, this is going to be a bit of a problem. How's this going to work? This is going to be 6 coins, so it's 6 coins on the face of it. Doesn't matter where it goes, we just have to find space for it. We could do this, like that maybe, and connect it. So we get a road as part of the upgrade, so we can connect it with a road like that. We couldn't do this straight away, unfortunately, because this is now tied into a house, stuck in the middle there. So we'd have to do something like that. We'd have to place out a road beforehand, and then that kind of works. And that's all good so far. Yeah. Okay, we'll do that. And hopefully we don't need these... hopefully we don't need these beachside spots for any further building, because they're pretty much blocked off now. But fine. So that was 6 coins we paid, and we get that out. So that's more income, and I should be really keeping track of my income, I suspect, on our income board. So we've got 6 resources, and we're up to 6 on the income. That's pretty good. Like so. Okay. And space is getting rather tight for stuff, but we'll try and make best use of it as we can. So this is out there, and we have to determine points. So we've supplied, or we have supplied the population prerequisite as part of this building, so we get a point. And then technically we've also supplied the processed food part of this building, so we get 2 points. And this is where things can get a bit difficult in a multiplayer game to figure out the relevant chains. In the solo game it's very simple. We supply everything, we get all the points. So we're going to get 2 points. But for a solo game you may have various people supplying the tier 1 stuff and people supplying the tier 2 stuff and all sorts of shenanigans. So figuring out the point chain supplies can be a bit difficult. But once you've gone through it a few times and you've realised exactly how it works out, it's reasonably simple to get your head around. So in the case of the processed food here, the number in parentheses, which is the +1, that is going to be for the owner of the processed food. So in this case it's us, so we get +1 point. The 2 is the overall points. So basically we're going to take the +1 away from the 2, which leaves 1 point left over, and that leftover 1 point is for the owner of the original unprocessed food, which supplied into the processed food, which is also us, but that is who would be getting the extra point there. And it's exactly the same for all the buildings and all the points, no matter what chain the supply is in. So for the example of this soldier's garrison here with the warfare symbol, there's 7 points, 2 of which are going to go to the person who supplied armory to the soldier's garrison, which will be the owner of this one, so that's fine. So that's 2 points. Then you have 5 points left over, and the leftover 5 points are then going to get split as per this bit here. So 1 point is going to go to whoever supplied the anvil part to the warfare building, and then the 4 points are going to be going to whoever supplied the finished hides to the building. 2 of those points are going to go to whoever owns the actual finished hide, which leaves 2 more points left over, and they're going to be to whoever supplied, in the case of the hides, 1 point is going to go to the livestock and 1 point is going to go to the wood. So it's a bit convoluted, and I'm sure my explanation didn't make it any easier to understand whatsoever, but once you see it in action and once you've played through it a few times and figured out the supply chains in your head, it's quite easy to get your head around and to carry on with. So anyway, all that convoluted nonsense aside, we did the upgrade, we did that, we did get the relevant points, I believe, for that, and now we have this building in our supply chain, which will quite happily, it will not make it up there yet. As I said, there's a gap in the way, and it can't travel through these buildings, so we have to stick a road there first of all. Well, that's fine. We can use the basic action of this construct building, and we can plonk out a road, smack in the middle there, like so. Now this chain is complete, and we can supply this building with that, and we get 5 points in the face of it, but with other players the points would be split as per the previous example. So in one way, playing a solo game of this is quite a lot easier because you get all the points anyway. But there we go. So that was that, and we managed to clear off that marker, so that's good. That building is penalty free for the time being, and we have one card left over, which is going to be recruiting, and I think we're going to use it straight up for the recruit. So we can recruit an advisor, and we do have access to the food, so we could pay 1 coin to get the blackmailer. We don't have the hide, so we couldn't do the usurper, and we don't have the gems, so we couldn't do the showman. We don't have the coins anyway for that lot, so that's fine. So we'll get the blackmailer, and we might want to use him in a second. Card resets, and his ability is gain access to any advanced resource on the board for free. Well, again, not so much use in the solo game, because we're going to get all the advanced resources are ours anyway, but he is useful for basically padding out our turns and allowing us more time to do stuff. So straight away we can now use him. We get 1 gem and a point. The points are a nice bonus bit, but the gems are the another one of the primary reasons why you might want to recruit people. So we're going to get him, and we can use him for his basic action, and we can get possibly a coin, although we're going to get a fair amount of coins as part of the income. Possibly an influence. We're going to get another fleeting influence as part of our income, so the 2 fleeting influences we're going to get may be useful for skipping us straight into university rather than having to go for the salt barrel again. And we're going to get gems. We are certainly going to get gems at some point. So yes, the university might be definitely one to go for. It's either a coin or a road or a person action. 1 point to gain 5 coins. I think is there a need for road at the moment? Not that we can't get otherwise, I suspect. So possibly the fleeting influence, and we'll do that. And then the blackmailer is used. So good. Call to vote. So we're going to get cards straight back in. We're going to get 6 coins. We're going to get another fleeting influence. This guy never got used, but he comes back anyway. And we have to figure out which building we want to place out. And I think the university is probably a good option. So we'll do that. We'll spend the 2 fleeting influence, like so. And this is return up to 2 discarded cards, except income to your hand. That is a very useful ability. That will definitely come into play in future. Being able to place trade cards and upgrade cards and use them and then drag them back out again to use them a second time is, I don't want to say crucial to winning this game, but it's certainly very, very handy. Certainly towards the end of the game, being able to upgrade twice in a turn with your basic cards is very handy. So this has to go out onto a grass area, and we've kind of exhausted all of our grass areas, but we could quite possibly put it down here, kind of tucked out the way. That's not going to affect anything, is it? If we build... Actually, a better place for our road might have been there. Yeah, that would have been a better place for a road. Never mind, it's there now anyway, so fine. But we can place it there, and it's still tied into our network, so that's pretty good. I don't think there's another place we want to place it. We could stick it up here, but that's going to require more road building than I'm currently happy with. We could basically place it over here with the intention that we're going to start building across this this river here at some point. So we could place the university kind of on here as a fresh start. But I think if we can tuck it down here, there's nothing that says we can't. These are all valid valid spaces. So we'll tuck it down there, and that should be fine. There's nowhere else we really want to... We could do that, to be honest. That would be... Well... No, I think we'll do that. We'll do that for the time being. And that's fine. We're not duplicating anything, so that's a unique placement as far as the game is concerned, so that's good. And it does tie in, so we get to place out claim discs first of all, so disc, disc and disc. And then do we supply anything to this building? We do supply the population. So like that, which pulls this marker straight back off again and gives us 3 points. And anything else? Cogs, no. Books, no. No. Okay, so nothing else for the time being. So we might have to work on maybe gems in the future. Yeah, okay. Is it worth doing gems now? Well, we'll see. That's something to think about for the future. So, Greymere Estate comes down and we get a new one out, and it's going to be the brown door. Oh, all the way around. There we go. Brown door, which is going to be this one. Like so. That requires wood, which we're possibly going to go into at some point. Cloth, which we're definitely going to go into at some point. Well, various bits and pieces. We'll think about that in the future. So we got our income, all of it. We reset everything. Cards are back in. We did the building. Yep, I think we are up to date and good to go. So then, Blackmailer is never going to get used for his actual ability, so we're quite safe to basically just keep flipping him and using his basic action without having to discard him. So let's go down here now for future cards. So we might want to start doing roads now and making a beeline for the river over here. So we can place one there, which ties into our road network like so. That's a good start. We are going to want to do this warfare at some point, so let's see what it wants. It wants anvil working, which we can do quite happily, and hides, which we're a couple of resources short on. So then, we may have to pay the penalty for this one, I'm afraid, because I think that is at least 2 more turns worth of bits and pieces to grab it. Yes, indeed. Well then, let's have a look. So, Carpenter, we can recruit with wood. Showman, we can recruit with gems. We might want to place gems out, certainly, so we can probably grab the Showman. The Usurper is hides. We're not likely to go for hides just yet, although it's definitely on the cards. Well, on that card anyway. Let's have a look. So gems, this would also allow us to clear out this penalty marker from golems and gizmos, which would be useful. Yep, okay, so we might want to do that. And the other 3 can probably wait for the time being, although metalworking as well. So this is where the university special ability is definitely going to come into play, because we can do a trade and an upgrade, and then we could pull the trade and the upgrade right back out again and do them a second time. So we're definitely going to want to... we need road networks for that. Okay, well that's what the Shepherd is for. So Shepherd is going to be a second road. In fact, was it worth placing this road here, or was it worth placing this road over here, for example, and getting a start on there? Well, it's done now. So Shepherd is a second road over here, I think, which then allows us with our trade to do actually, is it worth holding off on the gems and making a beeline for the soldiers' garrison stuff instead? If we hold off on the gems for 1 more turn, yes, we're going to have to pay a penalty for golems and gizmos, but then when these guys get their penalty markers placed on them next turn, we can clear them both off with 1 building, which is super efficient. and this game is definitely all about efficiency. So if we go for Soldier's Garrison, we're going to have to do metalworking, yup, and wood. That's a lot of upgrading, that's a lot of coins. That's 2 coins, plus a total of 10, that's 12 coins. We have 3, we can get 5 more from that, but that means that our guy is being used up, and then we don't have him to use on the university to get those cards back out again. Huh. I may have left things a turn too late. Alright, so change of plans then. We'll start working towards getting the stuff for the Soldier's Garrison, but I think unfortunately we have to do the gems partway through as well, simply because I don't think we can afford both penalties. We need to get rid of at least one of them, and Golems and Gizmos is the easier one to do. So, yeah, that's a bit unfortunate though. But, so there we. Okay, so with that in mind then, we will do the trade for the gems, and that can get placed out kind of here, which is fine. So we have to spend a coin for that. That's 2 back, and like so. Okay, so that increases our income, which is good. I think next time we're going to need a whole load of cash, so the more income we can get now, the better. So that's that. Then we could do, so we've got construct, we've got recruit, we've got an upgrade. Construct, I think, is going to be used to pull trade and upgrade back out again. Recruiting is going to be used to grab the showman, quite possibly. All in all, does that leave us enough money even? Maybe not. If we do an upgrade, we may only get to do 1 upgrade this turn then, unfortunately. Okay, fair enough. So we did the trade. We're going to do the recruit. So we get to recruit an advisor. We can recruit the showman now we've built those gems. And he gets us a lasting influence as well as the fleeting for the card. And we have to spend another coin, like so. And then the cards refresh. That gives us the showman, which we could indeed use it for his ability, but I think holding off one more turn and maybe then use his ability would be beneficial. So we'll use him for a basic action, and it's going to be another road. And I think we're going to need a road up here now, like so. Then we've got upgrading, and we might not even get to do any upgrades. We've got 4 coins to spend on an upgrade, but we're going to need 1 more coin for another trade, aren't we? Oh, and just to rewind, I completely forgot to... So we did supply the gems to Golems and Gizmos, which is 2 points, and we did supply the gems to the university, which is another 2 points. That's 4 points in total. And unfortunately it only clears off 1 marker from Golems and Gizmos because the university was already supplied, but never mind. So now then we could use the upgrade for another road, which would get this one over here. Then we can, excuse me, then we can use the construct, and we'll use it for a basic action this time. And we're going to place our marker out, not on the Harrower special ability, but on the university now. We have supplied to it, we can gain access to its ability. We can return up to 2 discarded cards, except income. Well, we don't have income in a solo game anyway. And we're definitely going to grab out the trade card, and one other one. I don't believe it really matters which one it is, to be honest. We don't really have... Well, we could recruit again, couldn't we? Yes, actually, we might want to grab out the recruit again, so we'll do that. We can play the trade again, And now we'll place out a metal working there, for example, like so. And that is going to start feeding into what eventually is going to become arms and armory warfare. And that gets us 8 on our income. And we had to pay the coin. And then we could recruit, and we'll get another fleeting even, sorry. And we could buy the paver now. We do have the stuff for him. We don't yet for the carpenter or usurper, and we don't for the patron. So the paver is pretty much the only one we can recruit. But he does get us another lasting. And he's going to be very handy in future for another upgrade, certainly. But we can put him to use straight away now for possibly another road, just for the sake of it. Although, we're going to have to pay 1 penalty for the soldier's garrison, which at the moment is going to be a total of 4 influence, basically, 4 fleeting. We've got 2, we get 1 for our income, so actually if we use the paver as a basic action just to get another fleeting influence, then +1 would be the 4 in total we need, and we would get to save our lasting influence, because this stuff is going to come in very handy very soon, I suspect. So sure, we'll do all that. We're down to call to vote, so yes, we're up to 8 income even. That's pretty good. Oh, I should have paid 2 for the paver, and I should have reset. I'm getting ahead of myself all over the place. But now we get our 8 income, which is good. That's going to go very quickly. We get our gem. We have to pay the penalty to the soldier's garrison, so it's going to be 2 lasting or 4 fleeting in this case. It is the cost of the rightmost pile of gems here, and these gems will go up as more prestige buildings actually get fully completed. But so far we've managed to avoid that, so the cost is as low as it's going to ever be. Then that clears off this marker, and then we have to place out another one. We could do the salt barrel now, although we might want to do the Grey Mare Estate. Is that going to be any cheaper? We've got that resource, we could quite easily get that one, dual working. We can't necessarily, we could do construction at some point, and we could do that one. So the Grey Mare Estate is quite easily one we could do, but unfortunately these 2 upgraded buildings are going to get in the way a bit, because we've already got upgraded buildings we need to start earmarking for this as well. The salt barrel on the other hand, yes, but again this tier 3 is going to be a bit of a pain. It's not even one we could even get quite easily, to be honest. Okay. The brown door is going to cost even more, but we could quite happily just crank out 1 wood and satisfy the brown door. That one might be the easiest one of all of them. It's going to cost the most in terms of actually buying it. It's going to cost us 2 lasting. But to place it out, I think is going to be better in the long run, rather than... Because I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to, yet again, hold off on supplying the soldier's garrison. Because we've got machinery to supply for that one, the university, and golems and gizmos, which is going to be several actions. Yeah. Oh dear. And it's better to supply these 2 rather than 1 for the soldier's garrison, because that's 2 penalty markers we get to clear out rather than just the 1. It does, however, mean the soldier's garrison is going to become harder to fend off the penalties on, unfortunately. Because once we've fully supplied golems and gizmos, that adds another lasting to this. So any penalty markers in future are going to require 3 lasting influence. And we have some, but not enough to keep that going all game, basically. Alright, we'll pay the 2, and we'll skip ahead in the queue and we'll get the brown door out. so that can go out somewhere. It needs to go out on a red space. We do have some red stuff available. Let's see, that could actually fit in there quite happily, to be honest. That's pretty good. Let's stick it there. So done. That flips over. We get discard a card, except call to vote to perform its main action. Discard a card to perform its main action. Why would you... Am I missing something here? You discard a card anyway to perform its main action. Why would you want to do that as a basic action? Okay. I'm not... I don't think I've come across the brown door. Certainly use its ability in any particular way in a previous game, but there we go. I might have to look that one up on the forums. New one comes out, the finer things. That one looks reasonably easy. We can probably go for gems fairly well, jewellery, and we're certainly going to try and build into cloth at some point if we're going to go for the salt barrel. So yeah, finer things probably isn't too hard, hopefully. Where's that one got to? The finer things. And it's a nice easy shape which should probably be easy to stick out somewhere. So fine. Now then, we stick out markers everywhere. So we're up to 4 now. But we do get to supply... Do we get to supply the brown door straight away? No, I think the point is we're going to try and build wood at some point and make that a nice easy supply, so that's fine. We got all our bits and pieces, so we are back into the regular game. Well, we definitely want to plonk out wood as part of a trade, and then we want to try and plonk out learning and then upgrade into machinery, I think. So where is our trade action? There we go. So that's going to be wood, about there, say. That's a coin. That's that, which is good. And that's another income. That supplies the resources to the brown door for this turn. So we get 2 points for that. And nowhere else. So fine. What we are going to have to do then is make our way across here, I think. And we're going to have to... Is there anywhere... Unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's much in the way of building space that we can plonk out our last trade building without having to buy... without having to build a very convoluted network of roads on this area here. It may be worth just waiting until we get across the river and then sticking one out somewhere just out the way. Yeah, I don't see a way around that for the time being. So showman can be used to build a road. Was I going to use the showman for that, or was I going to use him for our final trade action? Possibly the final trade action. We'll hold off on the showman for that then. We can use the blackmailer. He's not much use for anything else, so he can build our road. So a road there. Then we want our construct. So we get to build a personal building. In this case it's going to be a bridge, like so, for a total of 3, so not the 4 on the card. Then we want to use the shepherd maybe. Let's see, upgrade. We're going to do 1 upgrade this round. Well, we'll use the shepherd anyway, and he can build another road, although actually it's not strictly worth it, is it? Bridges count as roads, that should be over here even, but they're only roads for yourself, so only you can use the bridge in your supply network. Other players cannot, but obviously in a solo game it's neither here nor there. So we could now start building onto these spaces here as part of that, and therefore if we do the... So constructed. If we do the showman, and we'll actually use him for his proper showman ability now. So perform a trade action, and let's see which is cheaper. The cheapest space is going to be the beach, the beach line. So we'll pay 2 coins now for building onto that, and that's our final trade, or our final tier 1 building. And then gain fleeting influence equal to half rounded up the money spent. So if we spent 3, we would get 2 influence. We're only going to get 1 influence. That's probably still pretty good. I think we'll go with that. So there we go. Like so. Will we need more than that? We're going to get some for income. We could probably recruit and get some more. I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay for influence. I think coins are probably... Are coins going to be the worst thing? Let's see. We'll put 2 back for a second. Let me think. We've got 5 coins. We're going to spend 2 now, and we're going to need another 4. But we're going to get to use this action to lose a point to get 5 coins. So we're going to be probably over on coins with what we need. If we spend 3 now, we'd have 2 plus 5 is 7, 4, and a potential 3. Yeah, I think we can actually go overboard on coins slightly. We'll put it on a more expensive spot, so up in the grass bit area there. But we will get 2. Influence is doing that needs to go away. We will get 2 influence rather than the 1, because we spent 3 and 1.5 rounded up is 2 now. So that's fine. And then we've used the showman for his official ability, so he is now actually discarded from the game, and we have thinned our action card somewhat, but I think we'll be okay. Then we can use the... let's see, we need to do that and that. So now we can upgrade into machinery, most definitely, although we probably do need more of a road network. So upgrade is going to be for the machinery, that's fine. Shepherd could be for a road network, and that would allow us to start expanding into this area. Spaces for houses, spaces for more prestige buildings, so on and so forth. Oh, how are we going to get our... that's what I'm... Well, no, we'll have to wait for next turn for a house then. I was thinking if he built far enough we could get another house out onto a green area and get another income fleeting influence going, but I think that's going to have to wait a turn, unfortunately. So Shepherd then for a road, and at least we'll start our road network. Upgrade, we can build, nope, not upgrade just yet. We use the paver to do our, he should have come back at the end of last turn. We use the paver to place a worker out, and we'll lose 1 point, and we'll get 5 coins. So that's going to be enough for definitely an upgrade for 4 coins, and then most likely a recruit, and that's probably a good amount of stuff. So upgrading now, and we want to place out our machinery building for 4 coins. And I think that is going to be the only place we can really place it. Again, there's no space anymore over this side of the board, so over here is probably the better place. We could, if we wanted to, kind of orient it like that, and maybe tuck in a building here somewhere, maybe even the salt barrel actually. The salt barrel is probably going to get built at some point, and if we use the salt barrel kind of like that, we could even do that. There's a bit of forethought for you. It does, however, block off at least this area then for building in the future any buildings we might want to place out of our own, but we've got this area up here we could start building into instead. If we place it in the normal pattern, say for example that, we could do something like that with the salt barrel. So yeah, that's probably a better way around of doing it. So with that in mind, then we'll place our machinery out like so. With the upgrade we do get another road for it, so that's pretty good. That helps expand our territory somewhat. like so. We get to claim it. We paid the 4, did we? Yep. And we get 2 points for the prerequisite stuff. And let's see then. So that's all good. We did get all that. We can place it out. We do supply now then this building for 5 points, which is good. Well, not so good, but we'll see. This building for 4 points, which clears off that penalty marker. And nothing for the Soldiers' Garrison, but never mind. So, Golems and Gizmos has been supplied in its entirety. So we get all those back, and then we get one of these nice little silk-screened house markers, and we can place that out onto Golems and Gizmos. Let's see if we can find one that looks suitably gizmo enough, like that. And this indicates that this prestige building has now been completed. So we don't have to supply any longer, but in the solo game, it does mean that all the influence prices now do get slightly more expensive, unfortunately. But never mind. That was foreseen, and I think we should have enough to pay the penalty now for the Soldiers' Garrison with that increased price, even so. The end of the game, for a normal game, comes when you've supplied fully 6 prestige buildings, but for the solo game it's basically trying to get through the 7 rounds and have all of them supplied at the end of the game anyway. And then we have a further recruit we could do with that, and no, yes, no, yes. So we could get either the Carpenter or the Taskmaster and build a personal... This is the point we might want to start looking at the actual ability of the cards rather than just having them to pad out our turn time. So personal building at -2 cost, yeah, it's pretty good if you want to get a second house out. That's a cheaper house. Or the Taskmaster recruit 2 advisors at once, paying for both. I think with the amount of coins we're going to have to start funneling into getting all these upgrade buildings out, paying for 2 more advisors on top of it is probably not a good idea. So definitely the Carpenter, I suspect, for the cheaper personal building cost. So I have to spend 1 coin for him, like so, and let's shuffle down, and we get a fleeting and a lasting as per his benefit. Very good. And we do actually have 2 coins, so we could go ahead and use the Carpenter for plonking the house out, but I think not. I think we'll just save him for the time being, and we'll use him for a basic action, which is going to be more roads. We could do more roads next turn anyway. We don't have any more people to use for abilities, so just a coin or just a fleeting influence. We're going to get 1 fleeting influence as per the income, which will give us 4. That penalty is going to be 6. So having 1 more fleeting influence up to 5 is just basically a waste of fleeting influence, and it's going to get lost. It's going to get lost on the face of it. Although we do have to think about what building wants to come out next turn anyway. The Salt Barrel is good for next turn, definitely. But then the turn after that, yeah, okay. Maybe the Salt Barrel still. And then finer things for the finer one, possibly? Well, we'll see. Okay, I don't think we're going to have to pay building costs for these 2. I think we'll just go for the cheap option and plonk the Salt Barrel out as the default prestige building. So, all that being said, we won't go for the extra fleeting influence for the Carpenter's basic action. We'll just go for the extra coin, and essentially he paid for himself. So, fine. On to call to vote. We get... Are we even up to date with our income? I suspect not. So 8 for those, 10, 11, 11 we should be at. So something like that then. So we get 11 coins. That's pretty good. That's at least 2 upgrades, hopefully, anyway. Money may not be the most pressing concern at this point. Influence for building penalties may be the most pressing concern, really, but we'll see. So fleeting influence there. And we get to have our stuff back, so we'll not forget to place him back now. Cards back. Yep, we'll say our cards are back there. And we didn't supply the soldiers' garrison successfully, so we have to pay for that with 4 fleeting and now 1 lasting, unfortunately. And that's the 3 coins there, or the 3 red gems there. We are going to place out the salt barrel as the default prestige building that doesn't cost us anything. Recruit an advisor at -1 cost. Okay, well, it's an option if we need it. And then I did say that was probably going to go somewhere like... I mean, it could even do that, but then it's not really connected to a road network for anything else, so no. We might just do that and kind of tuck it away there. This stuff is essentially useless to us for building anyway, because this is our building there and it's going to be adjacent spots all around. So this can quite happily go in the way and act as a bit of a barrier, and we've made use of that space like so. So pretty good. We do get markers onto everything that hasn't yet been supplied. So garrison, that, the university still, the brown door, and golems and gizmos has been supplied, so that's fine. So we're looking at possibly 4 deliveries this turn. Well, -1 delivery then, because the salt barrel is going to get immediately supplied by the wood, if nothing else, for 2 points. And yes, machine labour there, or whatever that icon is, and nothing else unfortunately, so we do need at least cloth maybe next round for that. So good. 3 supplies, or 3 deliveries to make. Yes, indeed. Okay, well, there we go. So we need these buildings shuffled down, and we need a new one out, which is going to be hopefully something useful. The Happy Alchemist. Jolly good. I'm not sure whether it is a happy place or not, but there we go. It requires food, which we can do, gems, which we can do, machinery, which we can do, so actually that's not too bad. If we can get, well, I don't think we're actually going to have 3 lasting influence to spare, unfortunately, but at some point, if this gets cheap enough, we can plonk that straight out and get it fulfilled right off the bat. So that's not too bad. And we are done. So then, were those coins supposed to be there? Did I use them for anything? We had 11 as part of the income. We had 3. I think these are coins I may have spent for something and forgotten to take them off. So that should be useful. Again, if I've made mistakes like that, by all means mention them in the comments, and hopefully things will work out okay. So we're all done with the vote phase. Now we get to do proper stuff, so it might be worth using the Carpenter in a second for his special ability. At this point we're probably, what are we, 2 turns left? 2 turns left, so it's now starting to get into the using cards for their actual ability thing rather than padding out our turns part, I think. Paver maybe, Shepherd certainly maybe, Blackmailer again, he's just a turn waster, so that's fine. We will use him to get another road out, and we'll start expanding our network thusly. We've got no further use for trading. There might be certain options during the game where you might want to have multiple trade tiles out on various sides of the board, simply for delaying supply to a building, for example. But for this game, I think we're quite within our trade supply now that we don't need to worry about those kind of shenanigans. So trade is no longer a useful card, so we can basically flip that and use it for its basic action. But do we need more? I don't think we need more roads for the time being, so we'll just hold off on that one for a moment and see if we might want to get maybe some fleeting influence out of it, for example. We probably could certainly use construct, although we might want to use the Carpenter for constructing and get a cheaper personal building. So we'll use him for his actual ability. He will build a personal building for us at -2 cost. So we're going to get our second house out now, and that's going to be 2 coins rather than the 4. and that can go into this grassy space over here, like so, and then this is available to us for a future use. For this turn, we want to possibly do the Soldier's Garrison, possibly do the Brown Door, possibly do the University. Well, we can definitely do the University, we have the stuff for that. We could definitely do the Brown Door, we have the stuff for that. The Soldier's Garrison, we have half of it. That's going to be the hides for the other half. I think, again, the Soldier's Garrison is going to have to take one more turn, and we'll get to him next round, for the final turn anyway, so sure. Or is it 3 more turns? I've honestly lost track, to be honest. I think we're 2 turns in. I think we've got this turn and then one more turn for the final round. Anyway, we'll keep going along and see how we go. So we could do upgrading then for the jewellery, and then at some point we could pull it right back out again and do a second upgrade, which would be the bookkeeping for the university. That seems like a reasonable option. That's going to be a total of 8 coins, which we have thusly, leaving us 4 coins for various bits and pieces. Okay. We're going to need road networks for all of that. So construct can probably be another road. And I think we'll just keep heading off in this direction somewhat. We can upgrade then, and that's a second road. And if we... got cards all over the place. Sorry about this. I hope you guys are keeping track of it, even if I'm not. We've got the jewellery we can place out. And that's going to be 4 coins. And that's going to be somewhere like there, maybe. Nope, that's going to be adjacent to a house, like that possibly. And we can place the road network before it, like so. Like that. So we spent the 4 coins, we get the 1 point for supplying it. And then that filters back through our road network all the way back to... where was it going? The Brown Door. So that takes off that and is supplied for a further 2 points, like so. We could just use the Shepherd actually, and then we would get 2 Fleeting Influence, and I think Fleeting Influence is going to be fairly useful at the moment. So we might just use the Shepherd. Let me make a track of the fact that we supplied that, and we need to boost up our income as well. So we might just use the Shepherd, or we could use the Paver. Either way, it's an upgrade, and it's going to be more road networks, which are going to be very useful for trying to squeeze in all these buildings. We might have to go... In fact, I was saying we weren't going to build up here any further. We might have to go up here just for extra room, basically, just to try and get stuff placed in somewhere we can access. Okay, let's use the Paver then for his special ability, which was double check. I think it's just basically an upgrade and 2 connected roads, yep. So 2 roads up here, so 1 and 2. And then our second upgraded building is going to be the book learning for a total of 4 coins. And that can get kind of placed. Unfortunately, we can't do it in such a way that it really goes off on a tangent over this way and keeps us out of the way somewhat. Well, let's see, if we do the second like that, we could do that maybe, and then that leaves this space here for more building in future. That's probably not so bad. So we'll do that. We paid the 4, we get 2 coins for it, and we get to supply now all the way back to our road network. Yep, it's still perfectly valid, to this building. So this is now completely supplied, and we clear off that penalty marker. And the university, that looks suitably university-like. Well, maybe that one. So that's now supplied, and that was a further 5 points, up to 43. And unfortunately it does mean now that these penalties and costs for prestige buildings are now even more expensive. So if we don't get the soldiers' garrison sorted, and it's very unlikely we will do, we're going to have to find 4 lasting influence from somewhere. Oh dear. Well, the 4 lasting influence might not be so bad. We've got 2 here, we've got another one from this income from that. We just basically need another 2 from somewhere where we could recruit and spend some coins and get a lasting influence from one of these cards, which would just about cover it. But then we'd be forced to build the Greymare Estate as our building, which isn't too bad. We can probably do the majority of that stuff, and that just leaves the stoneworking, which we're going to need for the brown door anyway. So, okay, Greymare Estate it is then, I think, for the free one. So, that being said then, what we're going to do, we did the upgrade, we did a second upgrade with the paver. I think we're going to recruit, and we're going to spend 1 coin, as cheap as possible really. All we really want is the influence out of it. Usurper, no. Patron, yes. Is the patron ability useful to us? Buy access to a resource at a normal cost. No, it is not. The Taskmaster is even less use, I think, and again the Scholar is not much use either. Although the Scholar is of possible more use than any of the other ones, so we might want to go for the Scholar instead. Recruit an advisor for no cost. Okay. Well, if we have to go to find a recruit, this will be a card to use for it, possibly, so sure. So we get 1 fleeting for that. We do have access to the resources to recruit this person. They will give us a lasting, which is the more important bit and piece, I think. We have to spend the 2 coins, like so, and we have to refresh the advisor board, like that. We can use the Scholar just for the person placement, I think, and we'll lose a point, and we'll get 5 coins, which is good. We will then use the Shepherd, I believe. No, we'll keep the Shepherd for just a second. We'll use the Trade, and we'll do our second person placement, and we'll get to return 2 discarded cards, one of which is probably going to be Upgrade. And do we even care what the second one is? We think we just want to upgrade, don't we? And we want to start working towards probably the hides, I think. So another 4 coins. So definitely the upgrade as the first card, and then the second one is probably neither here nor there, to be honest. We could do another recruit for another lasting influence. Maybe next turn. I think we're okay on influence, actually. We'll just get the trade out for the time being. I think whatever we get will just be a basic action's worth of a card. So 2 cards there that were pulled out from the discard. We're going to play the upgrade another time, and we're going to build our hides this time for 4 coins. And they can go over here, maybe. That seems pretty useful. That's about as efficient space-wise, I think, as we're going to get. So we'll do that. That's going to be 2 points. That's our final claim marker. Technically, these are not really necessary, since you can claim all the buildings anyway. But it's nice just to see your network of bits and pieces. And we gain access to the hides on the board, which is the final resource we need to get this now completed for the purposes of the soldier's garrison. And our income is now standing at 8, 12, 13. So, okay, we were just about up to date. And that is fine. We've got several more cards we can make use of, but I think trade is going to be probably a fleeting influence, like so, which leaves us with 2. Yep, okay. And then the shepherd, which I think is just going to be probably a coin at this point. We can do roads another time, I think. So just a coin, like so. And then we are on to a call to vote. So then, we have to pay the penalty for the... Well, we have to do income first, so let's not forget that. That's 13 in total. So 6 and a further 6 and a 1 is a total of 13. And we need the 2 fleeting influence, which is kind of important. And then we get all our cards back. And we'll just place it over there for the time being. Then we have to pay a penalty for the Soldier's Garrison. So that goes off and we pay 4 fleeting and then a further 2 lasting for a total there of 4 lasting influence. So that's the penalty paid. And then we have to place out the Greymare Estate as the building we have to place out. We don't get a choice in the matter. So that is up there, like so. And the Greymare Estate has to go on to a green space. We could do something like that, which is blocking us off from building up here further, but I think we've made good use out of that space and that kind of tucks in there nicely. Or, saying that, actually, we might want to place it down here, like so. Although that does restrict us from building onto this sandy spot. We can't get the road network down there easily enough. So, Or we could do something like that, maybe. And a couple of roads up there would actually get us up there quite easily. We don't have to connect to it this straight away, it's not mandatory. Let's try that and see how that goes. So we'll do that, we'll shuffle things along. We need a new building. And what does the Greymare Estate give us? Losing fleeting influence to gain lasting influence. That's going to be pretty handy, I suspect, if we have to pay any more penalties, certainly. So, penalties now. Markers, sorry. So, Soldier's Garrison, yes. Estate, certainly. The Salt Barrel, definitely. Nope, nope, and yes for the Brown Door. So that's a total of 4 buildings we have to supply. Okay. And we need to find the Temple of the Great Oak for there. That's not likely to happen, is it now? Huh. Okay. And my battery's flashing at me, so I'm going to be right back after this and we'll see how we get on. Okay, and welcome back for the final round. I think we're in a reasonable position. I don't want to jinx it, but having had a quick look around, I think we're in a reasonable position to hopefully achieve basically what we need to achieve and get everything supplied to the buildings for the end of the round. There is no call to vote for the final round. You just basically, if you supplied everything, you win the game, and then it's a tally up of points to see how much you've won by. If you haven't supplied anything, then it's just basically a straight lose, unfortunately, and all your work found in the city is a bit wasted. But we'll carry on and we'll see where we get to. These guys, I believe, should have come back for the reset, but now we have actions, and we need to basically supply the Brown Door with bricks and cloth, and I think bricks are also used up in the Greymare Estate, which is fine. Cloth is also used up in the Salt Barrel, so let's have a look. Definitely bricks, definitely cloth, definitely arms and armory for the Soldier's Garrison, and I think the Greymare Estate is going to make use of everything else we built so far. So yeah, that's pretty much what we need. So we need, what's that, 16 coins, and we have 12, 16, 17, yeah, so, you know, enough coins, but that's going to be 3 upgrades. So we've got the Shepherd for an upgrade, well, I know we've got upgrade for an upgrade, and we also need, okay, well, nobody else, so we need to find another upgrade from somewhere. Well, we can always use the university to pull an upgrade card back out again. So it's pretty much, do we have space for all of this stuff? If not, we'll have to build some roads. I think we can probably fit it in existing areas somewhere along the line. So that could go like that, for example. We could have this with a road. We could have it over there or a bit further along. Yeah, I think we've got, you know, enough space to kind of plonk all this stuff around. So let's go to it then. So first thing we're going to do then is we'll do, right, saying that, we might want to use the upgrade for a road then. So we'll do an upgrade action. We get a free road with it, and we'll place the road there, and then we can place our cloth upgrade there. We're out of claim tokens, unfortunately, so just pretend that's ours, and we have to pay 6 coins for it, and we have to have the relevant material. If we haven't got them by this point, we would have probably lost the game, so we can see by checking the board that that's all satisfactory, and that is indeed ours. There's no point bothering with income anymore because we're not going to do a final call to vote, so any further income is a bit wasted, so we can just take these markers and use them for determining ownership of stuff. That does get us 5 points, so we'll do that. And then that does supply through the network the salt barrel for a further 9 points, which is up to 458. And that is all that stuff done. And again, that building on. And again, we could start plonking down markers for increasing the prices of stuff, but when this stuff is not going to come into play at the end of the round anyway, so you can just safely ignore that point as well. So that's all done. There's nothing else that requires... Oh, no, the brown door does require it as well. So that's 7 points. 5, and again that is connected to the network. Yep, that looks fine. So good, we're done with that. We haven't yet built that. Then we can play the shepherd, and we can play him for his actual ability. So build an advanced resource building. So if we build actually the level 3 resource building, that's going to be 6 coins, again another 6. And because it's a level 3, we get 3 fleeting influence. This is going to be points at the end of the game. Oh no, it's not. Fleeting influence is not points at the end of the game. Never mind. Well, anyway. So he is out. And then this can get placed up here successfully. A further 5 points, up to 10. And we do have all the prerequisites, yep. And then that successfully supplies the soldier's garrison, finally, for the a further 7 points. And this stuff gets pushed off, and we get that for the soldier's garrison. So now we just need the brown door, and and we need to plonk out a couple of roads to get the Greymere estate connected up. So let's do the blackmailer for a road, like this, and we could use construct as a basic action for a second road, like so. That is the Greymere estate now connected, so it's going to suddenly get a whole influx of stuff. It's going to get 2 points, 5 points, not the brickworking yet, but it is going to get that for 7 points, so that's a total of 12. Just move these cards out of the way of the score track, so that's going to be 1929, so we're at 79 now, I believe. And that is that marker cleared off, but we still need to supply it in its entirety. Then we want to do recruit. Do we want to bother? It might be worth, if we've got a couple of coins left over, merely doing... Actually, no, it's not really worth it. Well, I don't know. There's something to be said possibly for trying to scrounge up some last-minute bits and pieces, because you do get residual points for having coins and lasting influence. But I think, to be honest, it's just going to be it's not going to be worth it for the various bits and pieces. So we may as well just use this for an extra road, like so. Then we can use our recruit as a basic action to get this guy onto the university for 2 cards out the discard. One of them is going to be the upgrade, certainly, and the other one I suspect is neither here nor there. We may as well use the scholar. We can definitely play the upgrade again then to place out our final needed building for a total of 4 coins and 2 points, which is going to be the brickworking over here like so, and that's going to be then supplying Grammar Estate for a total of 4 points and a marker. And finally, where's the last one gone to? Ah, here we go, the brown door for another 4 points and another marker. Success, I believe. And we have a couple of cards left over, and we could just use them neither here nor there. We'll get a couple of coins. That probably doesn't equate to much, I don't believe. So there we go. We've used all the coins. We don't go into a final call to vote because we're at the end of the game. So success. We have successfully supplied all the buildings. Again, as I said, if we hadn't done so, it would have been a fail. So that is a victory, and it's simply you take your score. So I think we lapped around once, 60, so 99 points basically, and any future victories you basically apply your score to a previous one and see how well you did. So there we go. There is some residual points you get for the end of the game. I don't recall exactly what it is. I think it's like 4 coins gets you a point, and 4 lasting influence gets you a point. Let me just double check it is 4 and 4. Where are we at? Yeah, lasting influence. Oh no, each lasting influence is worth a point, and each set of 4 coins is a point. So we got 1 more point for a flat 100. So not bad. Solo game of Founders of Gloomhaven. Okay, welcome back. So a couple of points about Founders of Gloomhaven. As you probably could see in the solo game, and definitely in the multiplayer game, the normal game, the board layout, certainly as the game progresses, can get fairly convoluted, and there's a lot to keep track of, and there's a lot to try and pass through in order to figure out if you have a particular supply chain somewhere, if you can supply prestige buildings with certain resources, if you're going to get points from anyone building higher tier buildings, that kind of stuff. When you have played the game a bit more and you're more familiar with it, I won't say it becomes second nature, but I will say that it certainly becomes a lot easier to, at a glance, figure out if you have access or ownership of anything that you need to take note of, and that feeds into any particular buildings. So yes, while it doesn't become incredibly easy, it does become easier, and that helps with the time aspect of it. I will say that is exactly what the points tracker board is for, the resource tracker board, and trying to keep that up to date is a particular point of the game that players do need to necessarily keep on top of, because losing track of this and therefore trying to sort through all this then becomes a bit of a time exercise in itself. So hopefully if you can keep on top of this as you go through the game, and therefore you don't need to constantly be trying to figure out various bits and pieces in the stages of the game, that will help things flow a lot smoother. I will say that one thing that does help towards this overall system that you're trying to keep on top of would be the follow-on actions. So anytime a player does a certain main action, you can follow along. If it's an advisor, you can always follow along by doing the follow along with a base action, or you could do a basic action. Either way, this does generally keep you invested in the game. You're looking to see what other players are doing. You're scanning the board layout to see, even if you can't do a main action follow on, even if it's just a basic action where you're going to get a coin or put down a road or something, you're still keeping an eye on the main board, and you're still invested in how the game layout is progressing. There shouldn't be too many times where you're sort of letting things play around you without having a mental handle on things. So hopefully all of that will keep you playing in the game, and therefore you're on top of whether or not you've got access to certain resources, whether or not you own certain resources, and how the supply chains are forming within the board layout at all times, and therefore that's more players to keep track of hopefully everything that's happening, and therefore the chances of something slipping by and having to go back and recheck everything diminishes greatly when more and more players are keeping an eye on everything. So just a point for the main game, that while it may seem overly convoluted, with a bit of experience and with more players being continually invested in the board state, it does help towards cutting that down significantly and making things flow together reasonably well. There is the intricate back and forth between players with the trickle down of the points that also takes a bit to get your head around, but on the whole, again, once you've gone through that several times and you know exactly how you're going to get points with the parentheses, the people below you in the supply chain are also going to get points, that also tends to flow together fairly well, and you have a reasonable handle on things. That can be slightly harder to determine game to game, simply because sometimes you're going to have third parties in there who you then have to decide whether or not certain people get points, and that can obviously change depending on how far behind or ahead of you in the points, whether or not you might underhandedly owe them a favour. So that's not going to become so rote that you can do it without even thinking about it, but again, it should hopefully become reasonably easy that you can tick through the trickle down of points fairly well and not have to spend too much time thinking about it. All that flowing into the solo game then, the solo game on the face of it is a very simplified version of all this. All buildings are yours, so all resources are yours. You don't have to worry about passing out points. You don't have to worry about supply chain networks. The only thing you really would have to worry about is whether or not you're possibly illegally placing somewhere within the adjacency bonus. But once that's been sorted, it becomes a relatively simple spatial puzzle for you to get your head around and figure out where buildings are going to be built, and hopefully don't build yourself into a corner and therefore realise you've got nowhere to place your buildings, and you kind of scuppered yourself. It does throw in a bit of a wrench, I think, with the luck aspect of it. So while it's cut down things with the simplified resources and the points, it does ramp up the difficulty again then with the factions that you can be and the places, the initial placement you can start out with. But most importantly, I think with the advisors you can hire, and definitely with the prestige buildings that come out, there can be an initial hump in the game where none of these guys will come over to you because you don't have the relevant resources, and none of the prestige buildings particularly work for you either because, again, you don't have the initial resources. And even getting the initial resource, sometimes they can be polar opposites of what you need for the advisors to start padding out your turns and getting more options, and the prestige buildings with which you need to just basically win the game, honestly. So there is, I don't think it's particularly luck heavy, but I do think you have to realise that there is going to be some games where it just basically all goes against you, and you can probably tell just by looking at it that, you know, a couple of turns in, you're going to be right up against the wall, and it's going to be incredibly difficult to work yourself out of it. But that is the nature of these type of games, where these card draws are entirely random, and it's just how things pan out sometimes. That's just something to work around. But on the whole, once you're past whatever initial difficulties the game presents you, I think it's fairly straightforward, and then you've just got to worry about optimizing your turns and stockpiling gems in case you have to buy out some penalty points for buildings. But hopefully once you've gotten past the first few turns and you've got things ticking forward and you've got a decent income going, that shouldn't affect you too terribly much, and then it's just basically going through the end game and hopefully winning. Unfortunately, there's no AI player to play against, so it's entirely you building up a score and then trying to beat that score. But as I said, I think it is very much about the spatial puzzle aspect of it and working the best way around that. But yeah, that is Founders of Gloomhaven. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.